We are here to examine a specific framework for understanding reality and identity. Our purpose is not to advocate for this view, but to analyze its internal logic, its first principles, and its ultimate consequences.
This analysis unfolds across 5 sections. We will begin with the framework's first principles, move to its ontological foundation, then explore the implications for human identity, contrast it with a competing worldview, and finally consider the existential outcome. Section 1, a framework for reality. To understand any system of thought, we must begin with its foundational terms, and we must define them with precision. We begin, then, with a foundational question. What exactly is a worldview? It is critical that we distinguish this concept from a mere collection of opinions or cultural preferences. A worldview, as defined here, is a coherent and comprehensive framework for understanding reality, existence, and human purpose. It acts as a totalizing system of thought, a lens through which all experience is interpreted. Section 2, the measure of being. This leads us to the core metaphysical claim of this framework, the single axiom from which all of its logic proceeds. The framework builds upon a specific ontology, that is, the study of being, existence, and reality itself. Ontology addresses the most fundamental question of all: what is real? The foundational claim of this framework rests on a critical distinction. In this view, God is not understood as one being, however powerful, existing among a collection of other beings. Instead, God is presented as being itself, the absolute source, the ultimate measure, and the sustaining power of all that is real. Anything that exists, therefore, does so only by its participation in this primary reality. Now, if God is being itself, and all things participate in that being, how does this framework account for evil? It does so through the concept of privation, the absence or negation of a quality that ought to be present. This analogy helps clarify the concept. Just as darkness is not a substance, but simply the absence of light, evil in this framework is not a co-equal force opposing good. It is understood as the privation of good, a distortion or a deficiency in what is fundamentally real and ordered. Section 3, identity as participation. This ontological foundation has direct and necessary consequences for how we are to understand human identity and dignity. The core premise regarding identity is this: human dignity is not self-created or autonomous. It is understood to be a derived quality, not one generated by the self. Identity, in this view, arises from being created in the imago Dei, the image of God. This forms an ontological participation in divine reality itself. The immediate consequence is that human worth becomes objective and intrinsic, not subjective or conditional. Human flourishing, then, is defined as the proper alignment of one's life with this disclosed reality. Section 4, the age of unmaking. Let us now consider the competing first principle and its logical outcomes as presented within the source material. The alternative first principle is what can be called radical autonomy. This is a worldview where the individual self is positioned as the sole creator and arbiter of all value and reality. This table provides a direct comparison of the two frameworks. Notice the fundamental shift. Under participation, reality, dignity, and freedom are all anchored in an objective external source, God as being itself. Under autonomy, they are generated by the subjective internal self. The first framework posits an ordered reality to align with. The second posits a reality that must be created from within. The logical outcomes, as presented here, are coherence versus instability. The source argues that this instability leads to a specific cultural condition. It claims that when humans assert absolute autonomy, they initiate an age of unmaking, an era characterized by moral ambiguity and eventually relational disintegration. Section 5, Life as Pilgrimage. This examination brings us to the existential outcome, the practical application of this framework of participation to the course of a human life. If identity is based on participation in an objective reality, then life becomes a pilgrimage. This isn't just a journey from one point to another, but a process of integrating knowledge and virtue, all in alignment with that disclosed reality. The purpose of this pilgrimage is therefore clear: to cultivate wisdom and achieve relational integrity. It is an effort to find coherence in a fractured world by anchoring the self in objective reality rather than in subjective feeling. The entire framework rests on a single, powerful premise, summarized by this statement: truth is discovered, not invented. It posits reality as something to be apprehended by reason, not created by the will. And so we conclude with the central question that these competing frameworks present for our contemplation. Is a meaningful identity something that is created by the self, or is it something that is discovered within a pre-existing order?